Hi, my name is John and I'm the founder of Bings Academy, which is a one-on-one tutoring organization that helps students reach their educational goals. Today, I'll be talking about why there are more selective high schools now doing the ACER Hastings exam and the possible reasons for this. This is going to be interesting and important for parents and students who are looking to prepare and or be doing this exam to transfer in the future or later this year. This is because more schools may opt for this, whether it's partially selective high schools or even more fully selective high schools. And if you are in year 6 but want to transfer in a few years in the future, they may also require this exam. Let's get into it. Transferring into a selective high school can have numerous benefits. The biggest ones being a high academic standard and school ranking, making it easier to get into a benefit university degree, an environment that values education, and just being a lot more cost effective compared to some private school options. As someone who transferred from Penrith High School to Girrawheen High School after trying out 3 times or 3 consecutive years, and every year having several students manage to transfer into similar schools or even better schools than this is something that I personally benefited from and experienced. In 2023, there were 9 schools that had the ACER Hastings exam as part of the application process when transferring in years 8 to 11. And these schools were Caringbah, Fort Street for the year 11 exam entry, Gosford, Hornsby Girls, Helston, Northern Beaches Secondary College Manly Campus, Penrith, Sydney Tech, and St. George Girls. In 2024, however, this number has increased to 11 from 9. Specifically, Macquarie Fields High School and Ryde Secondary College now require the Hastings exam for entry compared to in previous years. This could very well be a one-time event for them to experiment with it, but the likely scenario that they're going to keep this on. We also know that this could also be the start of potentially more partially and fully selective high schools opting for this exam as opposed to other alternatives or having their own exam. Macquarie Fields was ranked 166 in 2023 in terms of school ranking, and Ryde Secondary College was ranked 137 in 2023. These are great options considering they are partially selective high schools with respectable ranks to back it up. There are several reasons why schools would want a standardized test like the Hastings exam, high ability selection test, rather than not having any test like before. And this is due to uniformity in the selection process. Right now, there is still so many high schools that have slightly different selection processes if they're looking to transfer into a different selective high school. If more schools either did 2 of the most common exams, being the ACER Hastings exam or the EduTest exam, students will have a more consistent understanding of the selection criteria. This means it will help them in terms of their preparation, as they'll know what they can expect, such as if they're going for Hornsby Girls, for instance, it will be the same test as now Ryde Secondary College, and a different exam to Normanhurst though. Doing 3 separate tests for 3 different schools is not a pleasant experience at all for students, and they sometimes have to do this in consecutive days. Normanhurst this year is just 1 day before the Hastings exam, which is for the remaining 11 schools, right? So imagine having to put and do the exam for Normanhurst on the Saturday, and the day after having to do the exam at Girrawheen, which has the Hastings exam. So when you do a test for a school, whatever you put as your first preference, if they all require the Hastings exam, then you only need to do it at that one school, as they'll share the results automatically to the other schools that have the Hastings exam. But when every school has different exams, that means there's just more time and more preparation required on multiple days. In addition, it also increases the competition. If more schools require the ACER Hastings exam, the sample size would be larger. For instance, instead of perhaps 2,000 students doing the exam across years 8 to 11, perhaps now with the introduction of Macquarie Fields and Ryde Secondary College, there might be a few hundred more students that will be doing the exam. With a higher number of applicants and competition, students must prepare properly if they really want to stand out to maximize their chances of actually transferring into these schools. It is the same thing with the Year 6 selective exam, where there's more than 15,000 students doing the test. So doing well in the exam compared to other students is going to be more accurate when there's more students actually doing the test. The Hastings exam will have nowhere near as many, But if the number does increase with the addition of more schools having this exam as part of the requirement, then it's not only going to benefit the schools that are going to join, being Ryde Secondary and Macquarie Fields, but in addition, it's also going to help the existing schools that already have this exam, as they'll have more selection choices from a larger pool of students. Keep in mind that generally the students that are looking to transfer are usually already in a partially or fully selective high school. They're in private schools looking to get into a selective school, so it's a cheaper alternative or even an improvement in ranks, or they're in a local public school, but they're usually above average in their existing school. It also makes more sense when we have well-ranked fully selective high schools like Ford Street, Hornsby and Helston requiring this exam for more schools to also adopt it. It incentivizes schools of a similar rank and especially partially selective high schools to want to join too. The Hastings exam has a reading comprehension, writing, mathematical reasoning, and abstract reasoning component. These tests, when developed early on, can be quite valuable and different to previous exams in previous years when Macquarie or Ryde Secondary College will not have this same exam, or they might have their own generalized custom exam that they created themselves. By following this exam format, they get a snapshot of the student's capability beyond just the supporting documentation that includes school reports from this year and the previous year, and some extracurricular and academic achievements to tack on with it. Although getting A's in a school report is great, it can be quite time-consuming process where schools have to compare two reports that already have identical A's, or if they already are from overseas, which has a slightly different grading system compared to what we do here in New South Wales schools. So with the test results at their disposal for these 4 sections, it gives them more information to work with so they can choose the best student that best suits their school and will not struggle from an academic point of view. Remember, schools want to choose the best students who are going to be able to fit in with their existing students. They do not want students who are going to struggle with adapting or say they will want to transfer and work hard, but the test scores and the supporting documentation say a different story. So with the addition of the Hastings exam compared to what they were doing before, this could actually be a big benefit for them. If I had to predict the future, I believe schools that do not have an entrance exam will start to include one. This includes schools like Blacktown Boys, Blacktown Girls, or even Parramatta, which are partially selective high schools. Selective schools include partially selective schools pride themselves for their high academic standards. So exams like the Hastings exam can help them hold students to this standard by making sure they meet the minimum threshold of what is required. It also adds to more transparency in the selection process. Sometimes when it's just based on intangibles like extracurricular activities or the number of academic awards you have received, it can still be very difficult for a student or parent to come to terms concretely why they were not chosen compared to another student. Although speaking from a personal experience of having done the Hastings exam 3 times for trying to get into Girraween High School from Penrith High School, it is quite clear to me whether or not I agreed or disagreed with the outcome. My first time doing the Hastings exam was not very good, and I was not even in the overall top 25% despite attending a fully selective high school like Penrith, as there was only 1 or 2 spots available. I knew I was not good enough to make it. If I did not have the test or results to accompany it, I would not be able to reconcile my mind as easily the outcome and may feel discouraged to apply again. Fortunately, I'm quite competitive and I have good self-awareness. And when I see my friends from Penrith doing the same test and making it into the school when I could not make it in, this is a motivation for me to do better, and I'm not going to give up. But imagine if they didn't have the Hastings exam and I just got a rejection letter and I wasn't told if my performance in the exam, I was in the top 25 or in the bottom 50%, it would be a little bit more difficult for me to understand why Girraween chose another student and not myself. I also believe that schools will start to shift away from not having a test and will adopt it in the next few years because of equity and accessibility. Standardized tests like the Hastings exam or even the EduTest exam can make it fairer for students from different socio-economic backgrounds to have more equal opportunity to get in with academic merit. And that is the whole point for selective high schools. Yes, there's a tutoring aspect to it, but sometimes when it's just based on supporting documentation, some students are able to do a higher number of extracurricular activities or have the luxury to do more academic competitions because they can pay for it. For students who are more well off, they can bolster their application by doing piano, playing competitive golf, or even doing debating outside school, which obviously makes the application a lot more stronger compared to students who may not be able to afford it. And personally for me, it's also a reason why I thought having a test was probably in my favor, as I couldn't afford to do any musical instruments growing up. Remember, it is not always going to be a perfect application process or an entrance exam process, but it could always be better. And I think an introduction of a test is better than having no test at all. It will also give schools better insights if they had an exam if a student they chose decides to join. This is because if a student did extremely well in 3 sections, but slightly worse in writing, for instance, they're able to allocate resources or adjust their teaching program to better accommodate to that student if they manage to join. Schools already recognize that students who transfer into a selective high school midway through high school can face some social barriers. So they deliberately incorporate school camps, student buddies, and even a student meet and greet when they join the school. This is what they do at St. George, Girls, Girraween, etc., depending on the year group. When schools are already considering the social element of trying to bridge them up to the same standard and make them feel included and welcome, the academic element should also and likely will also be considered. If I joined a new school in year 11, they may want to deter me from choosing a difficult English extension subject if they notice that in my HASS test, as well as my school report, it was slightly weaker compared to math, for instance. They may, in fact, encourage me to choose maths extension because of my strong performance in Penrith, seen through my school reports, as well as my performance in the HASS exam. In conclusion, the HASS exam is now being done by 2 additional schools, being Macquarie Fields and Ryde Secondary College, compared to in previous years. There are a number of reasons why this change occurred, namely a more streamlined testing approach, more information for schools to choose from in terms of their new students, and an overall improvement from what they were doing before. If I had to predict, more schools will incorporate a test component, and that test will be a more standardized one that other schools will be doing, as there's going to be a much larger sample size compared to if they only had a unique custom exam to that school, just like what Sydney Boys or Normanhurst does. Yes, a unique test that is tailored can assess more specific elements, but there will be a much fewer number of students actually doing the test to compare it with. If you're looking to transfer schools in the future, you should definitely take this into consideration when putting down which school options you want to go for, and if you are preparing or doing the exam even later this year in August. I wish I had this information growing up when I was looking to transfer for this exam. If you like this type of video, let me know down in the comments below. Literally like it, subscribe if you haven't already, or if you're curious about a topic similar to what I've discussed today, then write it down. Sometimes when I create and think about video topic ideas, I'm not too sure if I'm just repeating what I've talked about in previous videos, but I know that this one, I definitely haven't. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.